During the retreat, I spent a lot of time, a luxurious amount of time, with Geshe Sopa's Steps on the Path to Enlightenment, Volume 2, on karma. And so I would take sometimes just one sentence from a certain section that really would get to me, and I'd reflect on this. And so the one section that I might spend several BBCs on is this section that talks about the faults of the obscuring afflictions. So I'm going to read the first sentence, and then I'll give you my take on how in this book, Geshe Sopa has a great phrase. I think he only uses it twice, which is surprising, but he talks about being a disciple of ignorance. And so I've discovered that I fall into this category a lot. And so I'm wondering, why does this happen so easily? Well, there's a million reasons. So anyway, here's the first sentence. The afflictions always bring bad results. They never have any good effects. So wouldn't you think that'd be enough to get one's attention? They always bring bad results. They never have any good effects. But apparently, this doesn't stick in my head. So I've been wondering about this and wondering a lot why something that seems so obvious and so, just obvious, wouldn't deter me from heading in the direction of dancing with the afflictions, And so one of the reasons is, Venerable Chini alluded to this, actually everyone does almost when they give a talk, is that we've been, since beginningless time, we've been friends with the afflicted mental states. So the seeds for those afflictions are just throughout our mental continuum by the millions. And then there's this idea that I still have, intellectually, when I'm in a right place, I see it's baloney, but thinking that the enemy is out there. I'm convinced of it, obviously, when anger arises. The enemy is out there, it's somebody or something. Intellectually, though, I know that's not the case, but obviously it hasn't hit here yet because I still get angry. So then what's the reason for that? Well, I think since beginningless time, before we meet any teachings that say otherwise, we've been geared to seeing that the enemy is out there. And during times of war, at least in past times of war, the enemy is clearly identified. So I thought I'd better stay away from traditional shapes because historically we're beyond this. But let's say somebody has a helmet shaped like this, and somebody else has a helmet shaped like this. Well, if you're on this side, you are absolutely triggered. The moment you see this side, you're going to do whatever is in your arsenal of weapons to get rid of this. And if you're on this side and you see this, it just would be like a moment, and you're after this person. That's just how it is. And so we're in the same boat with our afflictions. Somebody says something we don't like, whatever side you're on, it happens. So there's that. And then, actually, though, things have really changed since people developed bombs. Because now bombs can fall out of the sky, they can come from anywhere, we don't see them coming. And with the advent of suicide bombers, we don't know who the enemy is. Really, we don't. And that is the case for the afflictions. We don't see them coming often, we don't know how to identify them. Or if we do know how to identify them, we think they're not that bad yet, or they're even our friends, like attachment. And so it's very interesting to think about, a suicide bomber. Well, what's worse, a suicide bomber or an afflicted mental state? Well, we know, from the teachings that an afflicted mental state wreaks far more havoc than a suicide bomber. So we lose our life, well, that life is over. But afflicted mental states plant the seeds for suffering in this life and for future lives endlessly. So with all that, when I think about that, I still come back to the puzzling conclusion, well, why do I fall prey to this? I do every day. It's just astounding. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating. It's just downright maddening, And so I thought, well, one of the things that sets me up to fall prey to this is I have this deluded idea in the morning that things are going to go my way. Do you have that idea? Do you anticipate problems when you get up in the morning? Does anybody anticipate it? Usually we don't. So then with this idea, I have the unreal expectation that everything will go according to my plan, because we have plans here. We go to a meeting in the morning, and we announce what we're going to do for the day. So I have this list in front of me on my desk, and I check off things as I go through them, and I am anticipating that by 4:30, which is study time, I'll have made it through the list. There's no interruptions. Everyone agrees with my ideas. In fact, everyone is, encouraging me to do that plan. That is just insanity. It doesn't happen. And if it's happening for you, I want you to write in immediately and tell me about it. So I thought, there's different things that we do in our life that are just practical things that help us avoid that kind of crazy thinking. So one of the things is, if you've ever taken a defensive driving class, they teach you how to, drive in a way where you're anticipating problems, which is a great course to take. So here are some of the tips for defensive driving that actually are great tips for us to navigate our day wherever you are. And the first tip is plan ahead for the unexpected. So I should plan ahead. I should get it in my mind that things are going to not work out. They're not. The next tip is to be able to control speed. Well, that applies to life here at the Abbey too. If we start getting all charged up and we're going to do this project and I'm going to phone this person, I haven't told the community, but it's a great idea, and then I get told halfway through the project, hey, wait a minute, did you run this by anybody? We've had that experience, haven't we? And then the thing grinds to a halt, and sometimes it's not pretty. Then be prepared to react to other drivers. Don't expect the other driver to do what you think he or she should do. So this is perfect advice for the afflictions. People are going to do and say things we don't like. We should expect it. As Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo says all the time in her talks, what did you expect? So what do we expect? We expect it to go our way, and they won't. So the next tip is to respect other users of the roadway. Well, guess what? Other people have ideas. Other people have points of view. Other people have experiences that we don't have that are valuable. Their input is valuable. I should respect that. The next tip is to be aware of driving in special road and weather conditions. Well, let's see here. I guess what comes to mind is that, you're not on dish duty, and then it turns out that there's a request for help with dishes. And I've got to give a talk tomorrow. I'm sorry, I'm too busy. But you know what? The dish crew today needs help. So, get real. Just roll up your sleeves and do it. And then you still feel better about helping. Be alert and avoid distractions. Cell phone use and eating. Well, we don't have cell phones here. But there's numbers of ways that we can distract ourselves, including eating. And so I think, this thing about not making assumptions about other drivers' intentions, not making assumptions about what people are intending to do here is such valuable advice. And if we have this idea, we don't have to be hyper vigilant. That's a bit extreme, I think. But just being very aware of the fact that things are not going to go the way we think they will. Things are going to come up that we don't expect. We go for a complete physical one day, and we get a phone call the next day telling us, hey, you need to come in. We've got something to talk about. We have to be prepared for the fact that life is unpredictable, that just like a defensive driver, we've got to be very aware that all numbers of things are going on at one time, and to use our peripheral vision. That's another very good tip for drivers, So here that just means, being tuned into what's going on for other people. We're not the only person here who has stuff to do. Everyone does. And so when I go back to this section that Geshe Sopa is talking about, that if I don't anticipate that afflicted mental states are going to come up and I don't address them, havoc is going to happen. And number one, I will be suffering, and then I'll be making poor choices, and then when I'm in that state, other people are affected. So I think I'll stop right here with that, because there's a lot to say in this volume, which I'll share. And there's other things that are mundane and practical, like defensive driving, that are very helpful to help us get to the realization that afflicted mental states are going to come up for a very long time, and how we can be prepared.